I've been asked from friends and even family, and my family was very protective and very involved. They wanted so badly to see me and the kids get out of the situation, but I tried to hide it even from them for a long time until it just kept escalating and escalating, and I realized that my attempts to shield the kids from particularly all of the belittling statements and the negative and the criticism towards them was becoming fruitless, because it was penetrating everything he said and did. We couldn't get away from it. And so finally, after the incidents of the emotional and the psychological abuse over and over and over again, and then finally the physical incidents, and there was more than what I shared. I remember at one point coming into the room and seeing him slam my daughter against the wall, and I didn't even know what had happened or why. And so at those moments, I finally it took me days to do this. I picked up the phone and I called the pastor of the church. And I explained to him what happened. And I'll never forget the rest of my life how after that call and after that moment, I was at the bottom of every pit. I shared with the pastor, and the reason I called him in particular is because he was not only a pastor, but he had a master's in family counseling and therapy. And so I thought, if anything else, this pastor would understand. And this pastor had only been in our church for, I believe, 2 years. And when he joined the church, I thought, oh yes, there's somebody that maybe I can speak to at some point. And so after the escalation of the incidents, I called him, explained to him what had recently happened in the last couple of weeks. And I'll never forget when he said to me, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And he said, I just don't have time for this. And this is too big. Those were his words. He said, this is too big for me. So here's a phone number. This is a Christian counselor in town, and see if you can get in to see them. And I did, and they were full, and they couldn't see me for 6 months or something. And so at that point, I was at the bottom. But when I spoke to the pastor, he said he used the word abuse. And at that point, some friends of mine had called, very, very dear friends, a couple that had a ranch. And they had also said they used the word abuse. And when they called me and said, we'd like you to come stay with us. And I remember thinking to myself, is this abusive? I'm not even sure. And here I am, educated. I had a job that required me to use my brain all the time. And I couldn't believe that I didn't understand that what we had been going through was abuse. But a lot of it was because I was wanting to deny it, wanting to believe it wasn't happening to us. And so finally then, once I recognized it was abuse, and then it was just like God just started to say, here's the pathways, follow the yellow brick road. Here's the pathways, here's the stepping stones. And then after that, when I finally admitted it, I finally realized it, and I knew we had to get out, then he just started to put one stepping stone and after another. And he gave me more than one dream. I had enough dreams that it all came very clearly what the pathway was. And the Lord also gave me some very important scriptures. One of them was, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And of course, that's Proverbs 3:5, and I believed and I knew at that point that I had been leaning on my own understanding, which was that divorce was not an option. I even thought at one point I might get hit by a lightning bolt if I pursued that, because of the belief system I had grown up in and believed for so long. And then I remember the Lord also gave me the scripture, and to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. And I had that moment of saying, I know that you have given us love and the ability to have a better life than this. You have want and have imagined a much better life than this for my kids and I. And so putting that together, finally, I stepped out of the fog. And I thank the Lord and so many friends for being there for us.